So today we have seen green in the markets. Does this mean that we're finally on the road to recovery, or is there actually more downturn still to happen? We're going to dive down into everything Bitcoin, what has been going on most recently, and what might actually happen next. If you happen to be new to the channel and you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. By subscribing, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏𝗍. If you find this video useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. Right, with all of that said, done, and out of the way, let's jump on down into the desktop and take a look at what is going on here with BTC. Okay guys, so I want to start things off with our hourly charts. Okay, so we've seen a bit of volatility in the market. We've seen Bitcoin push up, we've seen Bitcoin pull back, and there's actually some pretty encouraging things going on right now with BTC. At the point of recording this video, we're actually seeing a very good green candle appear just here, and do expect some selling pressure, but we also have our target that we were talking about for quite a few videos ago now, around that kind of $40,000. Now I just want to kind of walk you through what's been going on here with Bitcoin. We were actually looking at potentially coming down lower with our B wave. That has completely been invalidated, and we can see good strong move to the upside occurring, as you can see with the recent green candle. Now here we can obviously see that there was an ABC down and an ABC up. We actually completed this ABC up move just here, and this was also an area of overbought on the stochastic RSI. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to make this a little bit clearer. As we find that top here for the wave C, we can also acknowledge there's a really small corrective pattern just in here as well. It's an A, a B, and a C just to that level. Now this actually effectively corrected the stochastic RSI reasonably well, and that we could start to see this thing potentially push up a little bit further towards our $40,000 target. Again, this is the bigger move. As we zoom out here, you can kind of see there is obviously something that's playing apart from the recent lows that we've actually had. They actually come in around that 32,900 range, okay? From here, we actually pushed up, we pulled back. I was expecting to go down lower, but we actually held up really well, and now we are targeting out for that $40 range. Now, what I want to do is, because we didn't drop down as low as we were thinking things were going, we can, of course, change our target a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this A wave, okay? We're just going to measure the distance using the fib, and then we're going to move it over into our B wave low, just over here. And again, this target's now actually risen up a little bit to 40,703 cents approximately. Obviously I don't draw them 100% accurately, so it's going to be in that zone right there. So we're just going to delete that off, and we have a good target kind of set here for Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin's going to be potentially moving quite nicely to the upside to hopefully combat this kind of downtrend that we've been seeing. Now, in itself, this particular move is incredibly interesting. It's because it's going to be forming a really good it's going to come across, I should say, a strong resistance line. Now, obviously, as we start to think about longer term moves, we really need to be thinking about where do bounces usually occur. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a Fibonacci retracement tool from the top to the bottom here. Okay, and this is really important because when we start to think about where this C wave is likely to go, it is right up there with the 786. Now, this is an area of the chart where ultimately Bitcoin, historically speaking, gets rejected, and this could see us moving down much lower. Now obviously you know that we have the targets down here already, and these targets are coming in at around that $31,000 to $32,000. Now in theory I would like to think that we could call this bottom just over here, but it's too soon to really say, specifically when we've got a lot of kind of confirmations in this low range area here for completing a C wave. Now that's just the most probable area, obviously. That doesn't mean that it's going to happen. It just means that we should be very aware of it. We want to be looking for invalidations, to basically make sure that we don't go down to those lower lows. That would actually come in right up here at about $43,000. Once we go higher than this initial kind of pullback that we saw, this will basically allow us to actually take a look at this positioning and say, yes, that's invalid, and we actually should be looking at more progression to the upside. It doesn't guarantee that you're not going down to lower lows. It just means that the wave counts here would not allow for it in this particular count of waves. It means that new waves would have to basically form to allow that to happen. So that's what we're really looking for. The main concern right now on the smaller time frame for Bitcoin is that we push up towards that kind of $41,000 range and then get rejected and go down into lower lows. Very possible, so we should be very open-minded to think that there isn't recovery here until we actually push past $43,500, invalidating that entire move. And to make this really clear for you guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all remove the the Fibonacci retracement tool there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just jump up into the daily chart and see if this makes it a little bit clearer. Probably not. Let me go into the weekly and see if that's any better. So yeah, here we go. So in essence, we're actually looking at this C wave down, right? So we're looking at the ABC. That C wave potentially could be this range of the high 32,000s, but we do actually have this scoped out at about 31,800, right? So that's kind of the area that we were thinking. Now, what I was referring to just a moment ago is that you actually have an A wave down and then a B wave up. Okay, that'd be in the 786 area. Okay, that $41,000 range, and I get that about there. And then this leads us down and into that range. Now, if that is a possibility that we actually end up seeing this ABC move, and we want to invalidate that move, right? And invalidating that move basically means we have to actually move up towards that kind of $43,500 range, right? If we come into that $43,500 range and that B wave effectively goes higher, it invalidates that lower low, so we're not likely to set it. Okay, so that's kind of what we're hoping for. But again, technically speaking, we aren't there yet. We can't say categorically that that's going to happen. Obviously, we are looking for a reversal here on this bigger ABC. Once that actually kind of gets completed here at around 31,800, then we actually should be looking for this ABC move to the upside. Okay, so you know, I'm not going to kind of speculate. These aren't actually to, you know, exactly to the point of where you would expect them to go, but they're just kind of a notion of what I'm expecting to see. Now, as we come back into our hourly, we can start to obviously review, you know, this good candle that's just appeared here as I started recording, which is great. You know, what's that actually looking like? Well, the stochastic's holding up incredibly well for a candle like this. So this actually is quite encouraging. This could potentially take us up into this high range. Now, we want to blast straight past it. We don't necessarily want rejection from there. So as I said, $43,500 is the area that we want to really be focusing in on for Bitcoin. But ultimately, you know, longer term, I still don't think that we're in a bear market. And for that, obviously, we rely heavily on, you know, other data, right? The charts are great and everything, but they don't show you what's actually happening in terms of, you know, Bitcoin moving around and all of that kind of good stuff. So what I really do like to do is actually go over to Glassnode, take a look at some of the reports there. Some of these are really fantastic to really get stuck into. So here we obviously have, you know, all exchanges and the net position change. One of my personal favorite reports in Glassnode. Now, this one, it's basically telling you how much Bitcoin is leaving the exchange and how much is effectively coming into the exchange as a net change difference. Ultimately, if it's red, more Bitcoin has left. If it's green, more Bitcoin has come into exchanges than has gone out, right? So ultimately, what we're looking at here is a significant amount of Bitcoin leaving. Okay, now as I kind of run this back out into 2021, this is still absolutely tiny in comparison to what had happened previously, but also so are the green areas. So just for clarity here, guys, this green area is the crash in May. Okay, all this Bitcoin was loaded up onto exchanges, right, as the price was plummeting down. Instead, we've had the price plummet down, and actually a lot more total, if you actually look at it from a total perspective, more has left the exchanges than has actually come on during this entire kind of process of crashing down. Ever since we kind of got to $69,000, more Bitcoin has left exchanges than it's gone into exchanges. Really important to understand that, because it's not what you would expect to see when the price goes from all-time high and loses 50% of its value. You don't see that scenario. You see what happened in May. A lot of retail investors getting shaken out of the market, fear that, you know, going down into all-time lows, all those kind of, well, not all-time lows, but, you know, bear market lows, that kind of stuff. So this is really encouraging. This is encouraging data because it's telling us it's not necessarily supporting a bear market, right? This data does not support bear market scenarios. It does support accumulation, though. It supports basically, you know, some people potentially getting liquidated. You have some people maybe who are scared and are selling. Maybe they're not aware of what is going on. They're selling, and ultimately, what you have is more Bitcoin actually leaving, going into cold storage, going into different wallets. But what it's not doing is staying on exchanges. I mean, that's really important to understand. This data does not support bear market scenarios. We'd have to see this dramatically change to be able to support things going down into very, very significant lows without you know, manipulating the price down into those low areas. I'm not saying it's impossible for Bitcoin to go down to 20K, but I do think it's highly improbable, not very probable at all, with data like this. This suggests otherwise, right? So really encouraging. Now, obviously, we can take that a little bit further. Here, we can actually see that there's no data for yesterday. And this basically effectively means that it's neutral. So if we actually come over into our inflows, we can see here that we've actually had less inflows coming into Bitcoin today as the price has moved up. Again, you know, pretty standard stuff. You would expect to see that. And of course, you know, we look at the outflows as well. They've also decreased, right? So again, you know, not much has really changed. Both the inflows and the outflows have decreased, and the net change is negative. It's completely neutralized. So what I don't know about this just yet, I need to get clarification from Glassnode as to whether or not that's just missing data for the day, or it is absolute zero, or it's such a small number of Bitcoin it's not even registering on the chart. Okay, so there's all that kind of stuff going on. Now, obviously, there were a couple of others, other kind of let me find it. I think it's under supply. And I looked at it the other day. It was a really good report for kind of taking a look at, you know, what's actually going on with Bitcoin supply as a whole, right? So all Bitcoin that's in existence today, you know, when was it last moved? Effectively, this is what this particular report is showing us. And what's really interesting about this is if we actually hover above here, we get all the data, right? 12.5% of the Bitcoin out there hasn't moved anywhere for 10 plus years. 7 to 10 years, that's 6.8% that hasn't moved. And the story is pretty consistent, right? The 5 to 7 years is 3.7% of Bitcoin. The 3 to 5 years is nearly 15%, right? So people have been holding Bitcoin for between 3 to 5 years. 15% of all Bitcoin hasn't moved in 3 to 5 years. We have, you know, 2 to 3 years is 6.6, 1 to 2 years is 14.4%. So again, these are Bitcoin that just, you know, they haven't moved. They've just been kind of static wherever they are sat, whether that is cold storage or an exchange. It doesn't look at where the Bitcoin is. It just knows that it hasn't moved from its current position, right? And that's 14.4%. Now, the 6 to 12 month, okay, people haven't moved their Bitcoin for 6 to 12 months is 17%. Now, as we get into the lower ranges here, we start thinking about, okay, people who are maybe actively trading it, people who are worried they've moved their Bitcoin, etc. This actually kind of comes in, you know, at some pretty interesting numbers, right? The 3 to 6 months is 6%. The 1 to 3 months is 8.9%. We have 1 week to 1 month, that's 4%. 1 day to 1 week is 2.5%. And obviously these are the active traders, you know, 1.8% are in the last 24 hours, etc. So this is an interesting kind of way of actually analyzing the overall supply of Bitcoin and how much is actually actively moving about, and you know, where is the bulk of the supply, where is it sat, how long have people been hodling Bitcoin, etc. So this is an interesting one. I'm going to keep an eye on it because I want to see, you know, what changes between some of the people who have actually been holding it for, you know, a couple of years versus those who are, you know, holding it within, like, you know, 1 day, 24 hours, etc. What we want to avoid is a large spike on that 24-hour percentage, right? So, for example, right now we're at if I actually get onto the right day, let me grab hold of that one. So we're at 1.4% for the 24-hour range, right? So, for example, if it goes from 1.4 to, let's say, 6% on the 24-hour range, that's going to indicate that some Bitcoin's heavily moving around, and we should probably be prepared for some kind of, you know, pullback of some kind. So, you know, you want to be kind of analyzing what Bitcoin's moving and where it's coming out of. You know, is it short-term hodlers or is it longer-term hodlers, right? And all that kind of good stuff. Really interesting to kind of break down the supply of Bitcoin in such a way like this. So, an interesting level of report. So overall, guys, I do think that, you know, Bitcoin is definitely that right thereabouts, right? I think if we actually push up significantly, we take out some key areas, then Bitcoin's in a really strong position to carry on and potentially move up quite significantly on the charts. If, however, you know, we don't actually take out some of those key areas, that lower low is still present. You know, $31,000 is still there. It is still technically a target to actually be achieved, should that time ever come. Right now, I like to think that actually things are looking pretty good. I mean, we've got good data actually indicating that we are not in a bear market, and this is a fantastic stage of accumulation. Guys, if you found this video useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then do go ahead and subscribe. Tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you are going to be kept up to date with absolutely every video that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.